Hey everyone, Firegrass here. I'm just going to do a short video sort of updating you guys as to what's going on with me, the build, etc. This is probably going to be a very unstructured video compared to what I usually put out, and I don't see myself doing another one like this. I really don't like using my YouTube channel as a soapbox of any kind. I like keeping it all business, and that's what it's going to be, going forward. But I thought a lot of you guys sort of wanted to sort of hear how it's going. A lot of you guys probably don't follow me on stream, so you haven't had a chance to catch me since the start of the league. But yeah, I'm just going to talk and we'll see, what gets said and what happens. And then I will click end record and upload whatever we record. So basically, the build had a lot of troubles on day one. A lot of these issues were completely unforeseen due to tree changes. It was very impossible to test leveling on the new tree. We lost a lot of increased damage that was replaced with other multipliers and things, but the bottom line is that the build lost so much base damage that I took about 12 hours to finish the campaign, which is like more than twice as slow as what I would even consider a slow leveling time. It was perhaps the worst experience leveling I've ever had in PoE. Now, I do potentially plan on league starting this again, so obviously that's going to have to get fixed up in the future, but as much as I take responsibility, a lot of this happened purely because GGG made a very drastic change to the tree and to the game, and we had no way of actually testing the leveling or, using the tree. We could test the endgame results, on an endgame character. I can simply add or remove stats from the character to simulate what the 316 tree is going to give us, but while leveling, it's definitely a lot harder, and, especially when I was doing SSF tests and stuff like that, there's no way to get all that extra gear to sort of take away or add stats. So by the end of the first day, the build was doing 60% daily. I was able to just buy red maps and slap some daily orbs on there. We made a lot of currency farming 60% daily in Valda's Rest with Persecutory Delusion. Now, Persecutory Delusion, for those who don't know, guarantees double bosses, and those bosses drop double splinters, as well as having a double chance for a unique cluster jewel. So I think I dropped like over 10 interrogation jewels over the course of the first few days of the league, which was something like, I think it was between 15 to 20x on its own just from that one jewel. The other jewels weren't obviously selling for as much, so not as much money to be made there, but we got the Headhunter pretty quickly. So I got the Headhunter, I think early on day 4, and at the moment I'm just sort of saving for a Mage Blood. I'm currently farming in Clinic cans, doing 40% daily with double Beyond. Now that's another strategy you may want to sort of look up. I don't think I'm going to make a video on it since it's very inaccessible to a lot of people, but I wouldn't really recommend doing it unless you have a Headhunter. As you can see, a lot of this relies on spawning Beyond mobs and then stealing buffs from them so that you basically become unkillable and have increased DPS. Very hard to pull off without a Headhunter. But the thing is also that the Valda's Rest strategy is greatly devalued at this point. The margins are very tight. You're not going to make as much money farming with Valda's Rest as you were in the first few days of the league. So that's what's going on with the build. I've changed the build up a little bit at this point. I'm going to upload the Headhunter and the non-Headhunter POBs for those who want to follow along. We've added Ghost Shroud to the build. Now, one of the reasons why we've shifted to the Ghost Shroud setup is because Scourge ended up being a lot stronger and a lot harder to, survive against than initially anticipated. And a lot of this comes down to the fact that the rain of arrows that we use to curse is on a 1-second cooldown, and the Scourge mobs just completely rush you before you, have a time to apply it, or they rush you while it's still on cooldown in a lot of cases. So you don't have time to debuff them and gain your, damage reduction and mitigation layers against them. But Ghost Shroud fixes a lot of these problems, so we've dropped Malevolence for Defiance, Banner, and Grace, and we've added Ghost Shrouds and the Energy Shield on Kill node on the tree, and that basically greatly increases survivability against, Scourge and a lot of the other dangerous content in the game. I was able to get to 91 pretty easily, and at this point now it's just been farming Delirium non-stop, so of course we're going to be like way behind in terms of leveling, but that's that's pretty normal for any build farming this kind of content. You're just not going to level up, especially when you're spawning upwards of 30 Beyond bosses per map. Some of them will get attacks through that end up killing you, but yeah. I'll also put the Masteries in the notes section, so POB isn't uploading the Masteries properly, but if you look at the notes section of the POBs, there will be a list of the Masteries that you need to take on both sets of the POB, so you can just sort of fix your problems up via that. Additionally, I am currently going for a Mage Blood, so the reason why I've barely invested into my character is because Mage Blood keeps going up in price, and I don't want to invest in my character and then risk having to spend an extra few days farming for Mage Blood. I'm just going to farm for the Mage Blood, and once Mage Blood is acquired, then I'm going to start upgrading the build. Currently, the build has about, I'd say, maybe 4x worth of investment into it. It's still very cheap. We don't have influenced rares. We still have a lot of 1C uniques. Pretty much all the money is just in the 6-link bow and the 6-link body armor, as well as a curse on hit set of gloves, which I think I bought for around 30c. But we still don't have any jewels in the builds, no cluster jewels, no arena splinters, no watches, absolutely nothing. The build is just complete budget still at this point. And it's probably going to stay this way, at least for a day or two until I get Mage Blood. Now, once I get Mage Blood, I will start investing in the build further. We can try some new things, and then I'll give you guys more direction as to how to invest further into the build. We are probably going to fit Cluster Jewels and the Herald of Agony ring into the build at some point, you know, like, so don't stress if you've bought those things and you're seeing me not using them or anything like that. It's just that I have other priorities in terms of what I want to get for my character. And once I have the Mage Blood, then you'll see those things get fit into my build, and we're going to sort of work around the defenses available to us. And yeah, I'll, you know, be uploading content for this character so that you can keep playing the character. I intend on playing this character probably for a couple more weeks. We'll see, but I'm definitely keen on, you know, seeing this character and how it performs with a Mage Blood and with all of the investment I planned out for it, so that should be really fun. So to wrap this video up, I'm going to address the controversy that you've probably, you know, heard about on Reddit or on other streams. This is going to be the only time I address this controversy. I don't want to talk about it anymore on stream, and I definitely, you know, as I mentioned, I hate turning my YouTube into a soapbox. It's really not for that, and I really hate being the kind of person embroiled in this sort of thing, but we're going to talk about it anyway, since a lot of people want to know. Basically, I made a lot of promises for this build, and if you played this build on day one, you were, you know, seriously doubting whether this build would live up to the hype that I, you know, generated for it. Now, a lot of that was just completely out of my control. I shopped this POV around to 13 other content creators before the start of the league. I had something like 80,000 views, and a lot of people saw the leveling tree, and no one realized that the 3.16 changes were going to make the leveling as bad as it was. Not even me. I did 3 practice runs on trade. I did an SSF practice run. A lot of other people did practice runs for this build, and it was just looking like it was going to be like a 6-hour run, and you know, that was going to be the end of that. But it wasn't. It ended up being a lot worse, and you know, I fully admit that, and I take responsibility for it, but it was very hard to see ahead of time that the leveling was going to be as bad as it was. Now, additionally, I planned the build around a bunch of 1C uniques, and the logic there was that you have builds like Toxic Rain and stuff like that, where they rely on you getting Hunter Influence uniques with Chaos Multi as a suffix. Now, in a lot of cases, these items just aren't on the market, you know, too early on in the campaign, too early on in day one, and they're also, you know, pretty expensive once they do hit the market. So I figured 1C uniques were a really safe way to go about this. You know, it's not like we were including multiple 10C uniques that were obviously going to cost 1x if the build became popular. I picked some of the most common uniques in the game because I figured no matter how many people played this build, for sure, tons of these uniques are going to exist in the market, and it's not going to be a problem. Well, I completely underestimated how popular this build was going to end up being, and you had a bunch of these uniques that ended up being, you know, upwards of 10C. In some cases, the Lionized Boots, I think, peaked at 20C for a brief period, stuff like that. It was a bit of a nightmare, and there wasn't really any way to sort of foresee this. You know, I've been playing PoE for a number of years now, and you know, I've seen 1C uniques included in a lot of popular builds, and I've never seen this sort of thing happen as badly as it did. You know, with mid-tier uniques, you know, things that are kind of uncommon, you do expect the prices to be close to 1x on the start of a league. You know, we have things like Snake Pit being 4x at the start of a league, stuff like that. Like, you kind of expect it because it's not a common unique to begin with. But 1C uniques, you know, I really just didn't expect this sort of thing to happen, and I don't, you know, a lot of people looked at this, and a lot of the people who worry about this sort of thing happening were just kind of guessing because they weren't aware of the tier of the unique, right? They weren't aware how common the unique was in the first place. But yeah, it was what it was. I guess my bad, but you know, it's also, to put it into perspective, like, I know a lot of people are angry about this, but to put it into perspective, a lot of these items still ended up being cheaper than the influence uniques other builds are requiring you to get, and it's not like, a lot of people were acting like since you couldn't buy those uniques, then you were just sort of, out of luck, right? It was just the build was dead until you got those uniques. We made do on day one, picking up an Infractum early and then a skirmish quiver instead, completely fixed the problem. A 1C bow, a 1C quiver. You could self-cast Rain of Arrows instead of using Tornado Shot to still apply the base poison. Like if you're using the Infractum bow, you had high physical DPS, and so you could use Rain of Arrows to apply your poisons and without losing too much damage compared to a Tornado Shot. But the Rain of Arrows was still going to be a good way to apply, to hex touch your curses. It meant slightly lower self-cast damage, but your totems are still dealing full damage with the Tornado Shot setup. And so there were, there are lots of ways around the problems that we were having on day one, but of course, it was what it was, and a lot of people just acted like, well, I can't immediately put the budget gear together, at the very first second that I finished the campaign, build's dead. A lot of people were having very normal problems that you would have had on any league start, and given the POBs people were sending through, like, it's very clear to me there are a lot of people that just weren't good players to begin with. Not to flame them or anything, but there were a lot of new players playing my build, and these people would have had troubles no matter what build they were playing, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, there was a couple of POBs where we had things like Mirage Archer attached to Ballista Totems and stuff like that. People saying, oh, your build doesn't do white maps, I can't do white maps, and they're completely misunderstanding how the build works and how the game works. And these people are just bandwagoning on the hatred that sort of Reddit spewing and that sort of stuff. It got pretty bad. I showed this off on stream, but my Discord reached almost 2,000 notifications just from people spamming my Discord, with mostly hate messages. I'd say about 20% of the messages were positive, and that's pretty cool. It was nice reading all of the good messages. I definitely am still doing content for the people who enjoy the content at the end of the day. And it is clear to me that there are a lot of people who never really cared for my content and probably weren't even playing my build in the first place, that were just, bandwagoning and trying to add on, to the heap. It is what it is. I'm not really that bothered by it. It is what it is. The bottom line though is that, as I promised people, once you invest the smallest amount of money into this build, it turns into an absolute monster. It ramps up, it scales really, really, really well, especially on the new tree. You were easily able to do a 60% daily by the end of day one with a shoestring budget. A lot of people having issues, telling me that they can't do white maps. I can't really, to be honest, empathize with that much, given that if you were unable to do white maps, by the end of, say, day one or even day two or whatever, that's not a problem with this build. That's a problem with you as a player, and you're misunderstanding that these shortcomings would have existed on any build, but because Reddit has made you feel like it's okay to hate me for it, then you're blaming me rather than understanding that it's a shortcoming as a player. Pretty much every good player I know who played this build was absolutely blasting with this, and that's not at all to flame people who are coming to me for advice and people who aren't as good as the game. I'm not really an elitist, and I don't like thinking or talking like that, but there are a lot of people who are just sort of blaming me for things that are completely out of my control or things I had nothing to do with whatsoever. I think the biggest issue, in my opinion, with everything that happened was other content creators sort of fanning the flames here, right? There are a lot of other content creators who just said that this build was total bait and were encouraging people on day 1 and 2 to just re-roll and give up with the build. Now, a lot of these people are some of the poorest people within the economy at the moment, because they wasted all of day 1 leveling, and then they had to waste all of day 2 leveling a different build. They have absolutely no money, and they feel like they're having a terrible time. To be honest, these other content creators are very largely to blame for this. I can't take responsibility, because at the end of the day, I gave people a build that ended up living up to what I said it would do. You were able to do pretty much all of the endgame content, all the non-Uber content on a shoestring budget at 30C. We even proved this on stream, where I used a 4-link Infractum and a 5-link Dendrobait to clear 60% daily maps at 216. And we were even, at one point we even alked it and put mods onto the map just to prove that, there's no fuckery going on, there's no overinflating or anything like that. It was just, a lot of people completely misconstruing a lot of things, and it was a very eye-opening experience for me. I don't know that I'm going to do starter content anymore. I'm probably just going to aim more of my content in the future towards more advanced players, since I think the startup players would kind of just prefer to play EDC and Toxic Green every league and cap out in white or yellow maps, and I don't know. I think there is definitely a worthwhile discussion to be had about whether a good starter build is one that allows you to do your money-making strategy on day 2 versus a build that allows you to level and get through white and yellow maps fast, but then falls off in red maps and requires a 10x investment. I personally still think that builds such as Toxic Rain, EDC, Bane are just much weaker starters. They're not able to do the high-level daily content as easily. In some cases, they struggle with Cirrus on A8 without investment. Not in all cases, right? There were definitely some starter builds at Shun. I think the next best build was probably Fizz Trapper. So, I mean, any kind of Seismic Trapper starter was probably really, really good overall. Maybe a little lower on the clear speed side, but, definitely I would have done that if not for this build. So, but I think it is sort of unfair, the amount of criticism I was getting. I was watching other streamers playing Toxic Rain Champ. Their bows cost twice as much as my entire build did, and they had lower boss killing time. They had slower boss kill times. They had much lower clear speed. The only thing they had on top of this build was a bit of extra survivability, but it doesn't really count for much when you're stuck in red maps when I'm pushing out 60-80% deli. When my build on a total budget is, able to get to wave 21 of Simulacrum, that sort of stuff. Going forward, I'm probably going to be reevaluating the kind of content I am going to be putting out on this channel. I was never doing this for the money. This channel's not monetized, nothing like that. And, I just felt that Path of Exile for me is more fun when I have a currency tab full of money, and I have a headhunter, and I'm playing a good build, and that's the basis of what this channel was always supposed to be about. I felt like I had a lot to offer people. I had a unique perspective on the game, and that was something I wanted to share with other people. I thought maybe other people would enjoy the game more if they had access to my knowledge, and many of you guys do, right? I've gotten so many messages from people thanking me for the build, thanking me for my videos, and encouraging me to keep going. So I'm gonna keep doing content for these kinds of people, and I guess there's just a lot of people out there who aren't playing PoE for those reasons. A lot of people just want to make 3 exalts in the first 2 weeks of the league and then go and bitch about it on Reddit, and it's whatever, right? It's up to them. It's not what I'm about, not what this channel is going to be about. But I do need a bit of time to sort of recenter myself mentally. I'm doing okay, right? I know a lot of you guys are sort of checking on me to find out how I am, that sort of stuff. It's kind of whatever, right? I have a pretty tough job IRL. This sort of stuff is not the first time I've seen or experienced stuff like this. It's absolutely fine. I will get by. I will be absolutely fine. But I do need to spend some time sort of thinking about the kind of content I want to be putting out in the future. Definitely, I don't think I have any business making a lot of content for new players and stuff like that. I think I need to refocus the content for more advanced veteran players, people who like having a headhunter on day 3 or 4 of the league, people who want to go after Mage Blood this league, that sort of thing. That's where I think the bulk of my content needs to be focused going forward. I don't know if I'm going to even be doing starter videos from now on, but we'll see. Yeah, probably not going to be posting on Reddit for the next year or so. I mean, I don't think I can show my face there again. But yeah, I'm probably going to start streaming regularly again once I have Mage Blood. Part of the reason why I don't want to stream right now is because there's a lot of pressure on me to be doing a lot of things and showing people. Too many people come to the stream taunting me into proving that the build works on a budget and stuff like that, and it becomes very distracting when half the stream is just trying to reason with people that the hate that I'm receiving is unjustified, stuff like that. I want to focus on more positive things. There's a lot of stuff to test this league. There's a lot of content to sort of be doing. Let me get my Mage Blood. Let me start investing into my build and all that. We'll go back to daily streams shortly, and probably daily videos as well. But at the moment, I just sort of want to play the game and be able to have fun. It's really, really shitty at the moment waking up every day to hundreds of new messages from people flaming me or whatever, and I just gotta get past this it's a little bump in the road, but I'll be fine. I'll get over it, and then we'll just sort of be back to normal. Yeah, definitely once I get my Mage Blood though, we'll get daily streams. It's more that I don't really have interesting content to offer either until then. A lot of the content I'd be offering at the moment is just me running 40 and 60% daily content with Beyond and stuff like that, and dying every now and then because, you know, the build just isn't capable of doing that sort of stuff on the shoestring budget that I'm currently at. You know, I'm still using a bunch of 1C items. I have some item level 50 rings, I believe. 69 and 70 rings. Yeah, never mind. But yeah. So you'll hear from me again soon. I just wanted to sort of do a short update to let people know how it was going and what was going on. I'm not going to be doing another update like this where I'm just talking. The updates in future, stuff like that, are going to just be all business. Going to be focused on the build, going to be focused on what to expect from the build, that sort of stuff. I don't want to be talking about myself anymore on this channel. I really hate soapboxing. I really hate talking about my personal life and stuff like that. You know, that's just not at all what I'm interested in. I just want this channel to be pure business, and from here on out, that's what it's going to be, alright? This is just one exception that I felt was warranted, because a lot of you guys are asking, so I thought I'd put it up. Anyway, have a good one. I'll see you guys shortly.